Here at the farm today, we are collecting some intel off from the trail cameras in the process of trying to weed out some cell service issues that we're having here. I strongly believe that it's not so much a cell camera issue as it is a cell service issue. With that being said, if you follow the channel at all, you'll know that we use and promote the Mature trail cameras, both cell and non-cell cellular cameras, but we're having some trouble with the cell side of it. About a month ago here in Kentucky, I started noticing that the cell service was not getting any better. It was getting worse. There's a tower about 2 miles from me here, so the service should be there. They must be doing something with it anyway. Throughout over about a month period here, I've been noticing not getting the daily reports. At midnight, it sends me these daily reports on all. I've got 3 of them here on the farm, and the other cameras, and it wasn't sending me those. So we've got some service issues going on. I get back from Alaska, pull the cards. One of them has 400 pictures and never sent me any. On there, 5 bucks, 1 new buck, mature buck, and didn't get any of that. Now, if I would have been here, that can be seriously detrimental to the process of putting this whole thing together, and more so for me probably because of my B-roll and my business and everything that comes from it. Now everybody needs that intel. So we have implemented the new Reveal X. I was able to get some of the new Tacticam Reveal X cell cams, and we proved that it is a cell issue in conjunction with some better format maybe that the Reveal X has that the X Visions through Meyer do not, because of the double antenna that the X Vision doesn't have, and the Reveal X Tacticam does have too. So I think it's just a per farm specific thing. I love the imagery of those X Visions. Some folks don't think the quality is great. I think maybe some of that is the way that I transfer it to videos or whatever you guys are seeing. But when you're getting it sent to me, I mean, the quality, I've seen a lot of them. The quality is good. So we're implementing that. We're implementing some changes there, getting some bugs worked out. You have that with any new place, right? Today's video, we're going to talk about, as you're collecting this info, we're starting to see, we're creeping up on the middle of October. We're starting to see a lot of across the majority of the whitetail range. You're going to start to see the scrapes being active. You're going to start seeing them be open. You're going to see your community scrapes really start getting some attention. Doesn't mean that the rut is happening. No, it does not. Separate video coming here this week to you. It doesn't mean that the rut's starting. It means that the conditioning is starting. So my analogy on this is this. This is what I've kind of collected over the years, dating back to my first days in the stand or on a farm learning, and also learning this in a more mature deer state, I guess I should say, or regions such as Illinois and Iowa, having that experience, that firsthand experience with them, and whether you agree with it or not, but in the high fence situations that I had back when I was managing the lodges, not hunting in there myself, managing those, I had a bow only lodge that we ran at some times there. So really getting to see how the deer itself just reacted to scrapes is a huge learning tool. Whether you're on the inside of the fence or the outside of the fence, the deer is a deer. They react, they communicate with each other the same. The way you harvest them in those two settings are different. So with the scrape topic, I see that this is a very crucial time that a lot of folks don't use the proper steps, the proper caution, and let that phase happen. There's a lot of stuff that leads up to the best time to hunt, and if you watch the video and follow along, I'm not trying to keep you out of the woods early. I'm trying to keep during the early season, I'm trying to keep your pressure help you learn to keep your pressure at a minimum to take advantage of when your potential on the property could be higher. So with that being said, the scrapes are something that there's two noticeable things in the whitetail world that jump out at us as far as indication that mature bucks have been there. Whether you're scouting public ground, whether you're on your private ground and you walk in and you see rubs and you see scrapes. Identifying rubs is a separate video, but knowing what that is and what they mean. The scrape topic that we're on right now. The scrapes, to me, over the years, I don't see the abundance of scrapes on a personal farm that I used to. The reason is because we implement a few strategies. One strategy is hanging the licking branches. The vertical licking branches puts more focus of attention, it's a calling card. The deer get more information off from one quality scrape than they're going to get off from 10 native scrapes on the property. Are the native scrapes bad? No, they're not. They're hard to get intel collected off from those. That's why we hang the vertical scrapes. On your transition throughout the perimeter of your property, gathering that so you're creating that line of travel. That is the reason to have those licking branches. If you look in the playlist here, go back on mock scrapes, you can learn all the ins and outs of how to hang them, what they're there for. That scrape, underneath it, the reason that I don't see multiple explosions of scrapes like a lot of folks do is because the information, the use is on those scrapes so much. It's not spread all over your 40 or your 80 acres. It's focused on those scrapes. Let's say there's 8 of them, 8 stand locations on your 40. You're going to have 8 licking branches, one in front of each stand. So what it does is it sucks the information to it funnels that information or draws or sucks that information to one spot versus many. Hope that makes sense. So what I see is my scrapes that the vertical licking branches, have the cameras on them, always stand, like we talk, stand, camera, then scrape. So as you're going in to collect your card, you're coming into the stand location, you're going out into it, you're not cutting that line of travel, and you're looking out underneath the scrape. You're not touching the scrape, the licking branch itself, you're not disturbing it, but you're monitoring it. And when the season first is young, or the season just starts, when you're there, yes, you can clean that out. It's a visual. Once you set the visual key, that scrape then takes off. This time of the year, those scrapes become very noticeable. So this week here in Kentucky, which is a little bit early because of the region specific, we're in that mid part of the country. We're not up north, the northern tier. We're not in that southern tier. We're kind of in that mid whitetail range across the country. It's a little bit early, but it doesn't mean that the rut's starting. What it means is there is some pecking order that's being established, and the way to notice that is we've got 2 new bucks this week are on the property here in Kentucky. The neighboring property, which has 220, they've picked up a couple new bucks this week. I just talked to a gentleman that's not too far from here. They've picked up a couple new bucks this week. So what the reason is because maybe the bucks that the neighbors picked up were ones that were here on mine that are getting bumped off in this pecking order. This area is yours, this area of mine is being established right now. So you're going to get some of that core, non-core buck establishments getting moved around. The thing that this learning tool on this video is, what do you do with the scrapes? Public ground, if you're moving because of the pressure, and you're moving with the deer movement, the more the pressure in an area, you have to. That's what makes public ground so so tricky but so rewarding, is you have to move with that pressure. You have to be smart enough to notice that pressure from human intrusion, and then if someone such as yourself with the same mindset and hunting capability wants to push in, and you guys are you're on the same wavelength, but there's no way to communicate with each other like we have on private property, so we don't get in that pickle. But you're looking for scrapes. The scrapes that you're looking for are going to be on something that those overhanging limbs that are going to be something that aren't going to break. That's why we use the vertical licking branches. Have I put vertical licking branches out on public ground? Yes, I have. Check your regulations if that's legal or not. But what it is if you find them in an area, the problem with it is folks want to crash in. That's why the title of this says October scrape activity and crashing. Don't crash in on them, or don't chase that. And the reason is you don't want to chase the scrapes, or you don't want to be too intrusive on these scrapes. And the reason is because just like their bedding, just like their food, most cases folks blow into those, hang a stand on them, even sometimes maybe put feed adjacent to them. And the reason that they've established that is because it's in a line of travel that they feel comfortable knowing that they are going to have some female precedents set in that line of travel, that they're picking up some intel to keep track of mature bucks and immature does in general. That's why they placed them there. And if you go in there and intrude on them, most of the time, one, I see that folks are cutting the line of travel to get to them to begin with, going across it and then hunting back to where they were. So make sure you're teeing into it wherever it is. And two, if you're on public ground, what I like to do is watch your steps on this. But what I like to do is I like to find them, step back, figure out where the next ones are, create that, or find that line of travel, such as we do with the hanging the licking branches on private ground. You need to, it's like finding a rub line, right? You want to make sure that you have a great idea of where that movement is, left to right movement, so you don't cut it. When you find them, you have to be able to, recognize a satellite scrape versus a community scrape. The satellite scrapes are going to be ones that maybe they're going to start right now in October, and then they're going to dry, whether that licking branch breaks or they don't use it come the pre-rut or the rut. And the reason for that is it's not the movement it goes away from the herd. The doe herd isn't able to come out and leave that scent in it during the pre-rut and the rut. It's kind of a satellite scrape at that point. So those satellite scrapes are going to shut down. Your main scrapes, your core scrapes, your main scrapes, and your community scrapes are the ones that are going to continue to kick up right through the rut, because they're information stations. So here's the deal. We're going to do some more scrape videos here coming up. But this video here is to set that mindset. Don't crash into them. Don't go blow into them and hang a stand on them just because the scrapes are there. You need to find out where they're at, where they're coming to. The worst thing you can do is hang a scrape or hang a stand on a scrape, go in, be intrusive, don't add mineral, don't add feed next to it or anything like that. Go in there and start, this is a separate video, but adding scents and all that stuff to it, and come to find out you're internal of his movement now. Now you've got him coming in the wrong way. You really need to learn or focus on where that line of movement, where he's coming from and going to, so you don't get trapped in the center. And yes, there is a core still on public ground. You're still in his wheelhouse. You don't want to be inside the wheelhouse yet. You need to be still on the outside of it. So that's one of those things that you need to learn how to. It's still that peck away at them. It's still that slow and steady wins the race effect. It's not, we're not to the point yet of being invasive and crashing in on things. One of the things that you can keep in mind when you're on these scrapes, if you're going to hang a stand on them, you need to be very, very cautious. Well, probably the number one thing here to learn from this video, if you find the scrape and it's away from where you were at, it's not next to your stand, maybe you didn't have a licking branch and you were tracking a deer or whatever the case was, and you found this new scrape line and it's active, the scrapes are on, you throw a trail camera on it, all of a sudden the scrapes go away, it's not as potent. Why is that? The trail cam flash or got busted, your scent was too close to it, he picked it off and he moved away from it. It could be simple as, like I said, it's later, as you go more to the end of October and that November time period, it's a satellite scrape to begin with. The potency of it is not going to be as hot later in the year anyway. The next step is, how do you get a stand in there without being too loud? What you need to do before you hang the stand, before you hang the camera, you should already have determined this. How close is that scrape to where that buck is bedded? Public ground, maybe a new piece of property, new lease, maybe you don't have that exact hold on where he's bedding, or where the proper habitat is where he could be bedding. It's something that you need to really focus on before you go crashing in there and putting a stand in. And here's the reason why. Because it's a satellite scrape, or a scrape in general, it could be the first scrape that is adjacent to his bedding area that he checks on the way in the morning and the way out in the evening. And if that's too close, you're going to get too far internal, too close to the bedding, and he's going to hear you. So the days to hang it, real windy days, rainy days, rain and wind, storm days, something like that. Or if it's when you get snow, something that's going to lock them into that bedding area, and something noise. You've got some, maybe it is on a private piece of property where you can do the truck deal, right? Where you can drive in and put the truck between where you think he's at and where you need to get, or the four-wheeler or the quad, or whatever the case is, side by side. Get the job done, get the stand there while the motor's running, and get out. Same thing as far as maybe checking the trail cameras, right? That has to be one of the first things that I always like to see. Is it closer to food? The easier ones to hang are the ones that are closer to an evening food source for buck movement. What you got to watch is, closer you are to the food source, like on private property, improved private property, if that scrape is closer to the food source, how close is it to your does? Are you going to blow your does out when you're in there hanging it? So resident does, yes, they'll come back. But if it's a deal where you've got let's say 5 days, you're on a guided hunt, or you're a semi-guided hunt, all kinds of equations that we could talk about, or you got 5 days off to hunt your property, and you're going to Michigan, you're going up north to hunt, or you're going to Illinois on your lease, or whatever the case is, and you've only got 5 days to hunt, and you just go in and crash in on that scrape because there's a scrape line and you need to hang it. You need to make sure where he's at all times, or where he could be at, is because if you crash in there, you blow the does out, set you back 24 hours. You blow him out, could set you back 3 or 4 days. Next thing you know, your whole 5-day hunt is out the window. So that is why I put so much emphasis on, in the further this business goes, and the more intel that I gather off from these, and the placement and the proper placement of these stands and these licking branches, the only way that you're going to shrink that movement down to an area, with having the scrapes pop up all over and be random, and then all of a sudden you start chasing it and you're pushing stuff all over, is to hang the mock scrape vertical licking branch and to focus their attention more on one. So couple things there to note on the board that we don't have hung yet, but here in the mobile office, I guess, in the truck. But write those down on a board of your own and drive that one home with yourself, and I think you'll really see the production that you can have by not crashing in there. If you're going to crash in and you're going to follow them on this scrape movement, you got to know where that is and how close to them you are, so you don't blow them out.